Namaste. I, Dr. Riva Gupta from JAYOTI VIDYAPEETH, Women's University, Jaipur, Associate Professor in Department of KRIYA SHARIR, Faculty of Ayurveda Science. Today's first session is about respiratory system applied physiology. Normal respiratory pattern is called eunia. Increase in rate of respiration is called tachypnea. Decrease in rate of respiration is called bradypnea. Rapid shallow breathing, like panting in dogs, called polypnea. Temporary arrest of breathing is called apnea. Increase in pulmonary ventilation due to increase in rate and force of respiration is called hyperpnea. Abnormal increase in rate and force of respiration is called hyperventilation. Decrease in rate and force of respiration is called hypoventilation. Difficulty in breathing is called dyspnea. Abnormal respiratory rhythm is called periodic breathing. Now, it's a hypoxia. Hypoxia means deficiency of oxygen. Reduced availability of oxygen to the tissues is called hypoxia. It is of four types: hypoxic hypoxia or arterial hypoxia, anemic hypoxia, stagnant hypoxia, and histotoxic hypoxia. First, hypoxic hypoxia or arterial hypoxia. It is decreased oxygen content in blood. Causes low oxygen tension in inspired air, like at high altitude, or breathing in closed space. Next is respiratory disorders associated with decreased pulmonary ventilation, like obstruction of passage or depression of respiratory centers. Next is respiratory disorders associated with inadequate oxygenation in lungs, like non-functioning alveoli. Next is cardiac disorders in which enough blood is not pumped to transport oxygen. Next is anemic hypoxia, inability to carry enough amount of oxygen. Causes decreased number of RBCs, decreased hemoglobin content in blood, formation of altered hemoglobin like methemoglobin or hemoglobin with ferric form of iron. In hemoglobin, iron is in form of ferrous, but if iron is in ferric form, then it is abnormal or altered hemoglobin. Next is combination of hemoglobin with gases other than oxygen and carbon dioxide, like carbon monoxide, hydrogen disulfide, and nitrous oxide. Next is stagnant hypoxia and or hypokinetic hypoxia. Decreased velocity of blood. Causes hemorrhage, surgical shock, vasospasm, thrombosis, and embolism. Thrombosis means a clot of blood or air or anything which is stagnant, not motile, and embolism is when a clot is mobile. Next is histotoxic hypoxia, produced by the inability of tissue to utilize oxygen. Causes cyanide or sulfide poisoning. Effects of hypoxia. There are two types of effects of hypoxia. First is immediate effect and another is delayed effect. Then immediate effect on blood. Hypoxia stimulate JG apparatus, means juxtaglomerular apparatus, and increase the secretion of erythropoietin hormone that stimulates red bone marrow, results in more RBCs and more oxygen. So oxygen carrying capacity of blood is increased. On CVS, increase in rate and force of contraction of heart, cardiac output, and blood pressure. Later, there is reduction in force of contraction of heart, cardiac output, and BP. On respiration, initially due to chemoreceptor reflex, respiratory rate increases and large amount of carbon dioxide is rushed out from body. It leads to alkalemia, Finally, due to failure of respiratory centers, rate and force of respiration reduced. On CNS, depression, loss of self-control, person becomes talkative, quarrelsome, ill-tempered, rude, person starts shouting, crying, or singing. There is loss of power of judgment, impaired memory, lack of coordination, weakness, and fatigue of muscle. If hypoxia is acute and severe, then there is sudden loss of consciousness. If not treated immediately, coma occurs, which leads to death. Delayed effects of hypoxia: irritability, nausea, vomiting, depression, weakness, and fatigue. Treatment: oxygen therapy. Effects of oxygen therapy in different types are: in hypoxic hypoxia, oxygen therapy is 100% useful. In anemic hypoxia, oxygen therapy is 75% useful. In stagnant hypoxia, oxygen therapy is less than 50% useful. And in histotoxic hypoxia, there is no use of oxygen therapy. Next is asphyxia. It is a combination of hypoxia and hypercapnia. Hypercapnia means increase in carbon dioxide due to obstruction of air passage. Asphyxia develops due to acute obstruction of air passage, like in strangulation, hanging, and drowning. Stages of asphyxia: first, hypernia; second, convulsion; and third, collapse. First stage of hypernia, it extends for about 1 minute. This stage is because of powerful stimulation of respiratory center and excess carbon dioxide. It is followed by dyspnea and cyanosis. The eyes becomes more prominent. Stage of convulsion, its duration is less than 1 minute. This stage is characterized by convulsions, means uncontrolled involuntary muscular contraction due to effect of hypercapnia on other centers in brain and spinal cord. Stage of collapse. This stage is last for about 3 minutes. The effect of this stage are depression of centers in brain due to lack of oxygen, so the convulsion disappears. The respiratory gasping occurs. Gasping means breathing with open mouth, deep breathing with open mouth. Pupils are dilated. Heart rate is reduced. Duration between the gasps is gradually increased. And finally, the death occurs. So the total time of asphyxia stages are 5 minutes. Next is cyanosis. Fluid discoloration of skin and mucosa membrane due to presence of reduced hemoglobin at most 5 to 7 grams per deciliter in the blood. It is more marked at lips, cheeks, earlobes, nose, and fingertips above the base of the nail. Causes of cyanosis: arterial hypoxia and stagnant hypoxia, altered hemoglobin. But in altered hemoglobin stage, dark color of the skin is due to compounds only, which forms due to altered hemoglobin and not due to reduced hemoglobin. And polycythemia. In polycythemia, viscosity of blood increases and blood flow becomes sluggish. So there is cyanosis occurs. There is some questions. A short note about asphyxia, hypoxia, and the stages of hypoxia. And there is some reference books. There is another part for today's session is adipose tissues and triglycerides. Adipose tissues. It is a loose connective tissue in which the cells are specialized for storage of triglycerides. Adipocytes are derived from fibroblasts. It is good insulator and can therefore reduce heat loss through the skin. It is a major energy reserve and supports and protects various organs. As a person gains weight and the amount of adipose tissue increases and new blood vessels form. Most adipose tissue in adults is white adipose tissue. Another type is brown adipose tissue or fat, which obtains its dark color from a very rich blood supply along with numerous pigmented mitochondria that participate in aerobic cellular respiration. Although that means brown adipose tissue is widespread in the fetus and infant, but in adults, only small amounts are present. Fat generates considerable heat and helps to maintain body temperature in a newborn baby. The heat generated by the mitochondria is carried away to other body tissues by extensive blood supply. Location of adipose tissue: subcutaneous layer deep to skin around heart and kidney, yellow bone marrow, padding around joints, and behind eyeball in eye socket. Function: adipose tissue reduces heat loss through skin, serve as an energy reserve, support and protect organ. In newborn, fat generates heat to maintain proper body temperature. Then lipoproteins or triglycerides are hydrophobic molecules. They do not dissolve in water. So for transportation, first must be made them water soluble by combining with proteins produced by the liver and intestine. Thus, the lipid and proteins combination form lipoproteins. Lipoproteins contain protein, phospholipid, cholesterol, and triglycerides. And there are types of lipoproteins are VLDL, LDL, and HDL. VLDL, very low density lipoproteins. VLDL form in hepatocyte and contain mainly endogenous lipids. VLDL contain about 10% protein, 50% triglycerides, 50% phospholipids, and 20% cholesterol. VLDL transport triglycerides synthesized in hepatocyte to adipocyte for storage. As they deposit some of their triglycerides in adipocytes, VLDLs are converted in LDLs. Next is LDL, low density lipoproteins. They contain 25% protein, 5% triglycerides, 20% phospholipids, and 50% cholesterol. They carry about 75% of total cholesterol in blood and deliver it to cells throughout the body for use in repair of cell membranes and synthesis of steroid hormones and bile salts. When present in excessive numbers, LDL also deposit cholesterol in and around smooth muscle fibers in artery, forming fatty plaques that increase the risk of coronary artery disease. For this reason, the cholesterol in LDLs called LDL cholesterol, which is known as bad cholesterol. Eating a high fat diet increases the production of VLDL, which elevates the LDL level and increases the formation of fatty plaques. HDL, they contain 45% proteins, 5% triglycerides, 30% phospholipids, and 20% cholesterol. They remove excess cholesterol from body, cells, and blood and transport it to the liver for elimination. Because HDL prevents accumulation of cholesterol in blood, a high HDL level is associated with decreased risk of CAD, means coronary artery disease. For this reason, HDL cholesterol is known as good cholesterol. Means VLDL and LDL are bad cholesterol and HDL is good cholesterol. There's some questions, short note on adipose tissue and describe different types of triglycerides. Textbooks, reference books. Thank you.